All you gotta know is stop kissing your chickens.
Yes. I would if I could. They run away. They run like this. That's how they run. It's really cute. Hey everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I'm showing you a very seasonal recipe from Dessert Person. It is my rhubarb cake, and it is really a celebration of rhubarb, the flavor, the color, the shape, everything about it, and it's a super delicious and easy recipe that you can make all summer long. Okay, let's talk about what rhubarb is, because I think people don't really know. Rhubarb is a plant, and it's considered a vegetable, but it grows out of the ground in these big long stalks, so these big kind of pluming leaves. It can be anywhere from like real long and skinny like this to really thick and kind of fat like this. And the color goes from super dark red like this one to a little bit green, like part of here. Don't eat the leaves because they're toxic. That's what I know about rhubarb. But the stalks have this really super tart, but also like vegetal flavor that I, in particular, really, really love. You often see rhubarb paired with another fruit, I think because it's so vegetal and it's so tart. So like strawberry rhubarb is a classic combo. But with this cake, I really wanted to celebrate just rhubarb. I don't feel like it needs another fruit to complement it. I should say, so like a lot of rhubarb cakes are beautiful because they feature like stalks of rhubarb on the surface. But I didn't want to only have rhubarb on top. I wanted rhubarb to be everywhere in the cake. So there's rhubarb that's chopped up and folded into the batter. So you get it like everywhere. You get the flavor, not just the pretty red look. All of the quick breads in Dessert Person are recipes that you can make by hand, no stand mixer. I just feel like a quick bread is so called because it should be a pretty fast recipe. So you don't need a stand mixer. Everything gets done by hand in a bowl. I have a scale for weighing out the rhubarb, a loaf pan, and then a saucepan for cooking down some of the rhubarb ingredients. So I'm starting with 1 pound of rhubarb, vanilla extract, baking powder, granulated sugar, demerara sugar, 2 large eggs, a stick of butter, all-purpose flour, an orange but just for zesting, plain whole Greek yogurt, and baking soda. Oh, and kosher salt, which I always leave over here. I'm gonna start by preparing the pan. I have just like a half of a tablespoon of butter, separate from the one stick. It's room temp. And I'll brush all over the bottom and sides of the pan with this. And whenever possible, I like to use room temp rather than melted because you get a thicker layer and a better coating of it. Okay, so once you have the butter everywhere, take a piece of parchment paper. I've probably demoed this like 1 million times already on Dessert Person, but for anyone who hasn't seen it, how to line a loaf pan. I have a piece of parchment paper. The width of the paper is cut to the length of the loaf pan. So you see that? I ignore this one fingernail that has no polish on it because I picked it off. You can fix that in post, right? Okay. Whatever. So see how it fits right in that bottom portion of the pan? So all you do is lay that right inside. And the reason I grease the inside of the pan isn't, I mean, the parchment is covering it, but it's the point of it is to anchor the parchment paper and have it not slide around. So go ahead and press it into the bottom and then up the sides. That's a lined pan. Then what I'll also do sometimes with the overhang is I'll fold the overhang down just so that in the oven it doesn't like flip over and stick to the top of the cake. And then more butter on the parchment. Room temperature butter, I think, is the most effective like greasing agent because I'm actually going to coat the pan in some of this demerara sugar, aka raw sugar. You can do this with oil, like the sugar will cling to the oil, but especially these larger crystals, it's going to want to stick more to the room temp butter because it's thicker. So I just pour a couple tablespoons in just like that and then tap it all around, moving the pan to coat. You can see like because of the butter, it's like a nice generous coating of sugar. I love coating pans in sugar because one, I feel like my recipes are not too sweet, so it doesn't hurt it to have a little extra sugar. Plus it gives a really pleasant, satisfying crunch to the outsides of the bread. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to look at your rhubarb and you're going to look at your pan. You're gonna think, what rhubarb is gonna look the best on top of the cake in these little parallel stripes? Like this size, this length of rhubarb is really nice because it fits right there comfortably at the top, but extends all the way. Now you want about 4 ounces total of rhubarb stalks for the top. The denser the thing on top, the more likely it is to sink into the cake. So you want like a thinner, lighter piece of rhubarb on top. So what I'm going to do, because I don't have really thin stalks, is I'm just gonna split this and divide it into probably like 3 or 4 different pieces of rhubarb. All right, now I'm at 4, well, a little over 4, but this is good. This is all I want for the top. Now with the rest, I want to just coarsely chop it. Okay, it's a lot of rhubarb. That is by design. And it might seem like too much, but it's not. So now I have my 12 ounces of chopped rhubarb. So I'm going to put 8 ounces of it into my saucepan. Oh, see, this scale is not like the saucepan. All right, I need a bowl. That's 8. And then set aside the remaining third, which is 4 ounces. This gets then folded into the cake. All right, so next I'm gonna move on to the compote. So I have my rhubarb right here. I'm going to add a splash of water. I mean, basically a tablespoon. Does not have to be more than that. And that is just to prevent any scorching on the bottom of the pan as I cook this down. But the rhubarb is full of moisture and water, and it very quickly starts to break down. Splash. So I'm gonna cook this down. I'm not adding anything else to it. I'm not adding sugar, it doesn't need it. I just wanna create a rhubarb mush. So while this is cooking, I am going to take my baking soda. It's kind of an important part of the chemistry of the cake, which I wanna talk about. So the recipe uses powder and soda. The powder is for leavening. The soda is actually there to neutralize some of the acid in the rhubarb. Rhubarb is naturally super, super tart. And the problem with incorporating a lot of acid into a cake is that it can weaken the structure from the flour. And often a cake can collapse if it's too acidic. So basically I'll take a half teaspoon of baking soda, and I'll just set this aside. And this gets stirred into the rhubarb compote after it cooks down.
Would this be good with bacon in it?
No. Oh, I just spilled the baking soda. Hold please. You can see it has become like applesauce texture. And rhubarb it kind of breaks down into these little tiny, fine, fibrous threads. So that's normal, but you want it to be totally broken down. So I'm gonna add my baking soda. Again, this is going to neutralize some of the acid so that the cake has like proper leavening and proper structure. So you can see as I stir it in, it will foam a little bit. And also it's gonna go from this sort of dusty rose color to kind of gray, which is unfortunate, but this is just what happens. And then you can set that off to the side. You want it to cool completely before we proceed. So now I am going to move on to building the cake recipe. Building the cake recipe? No, I'm gonna move on to making the cake. Is that what I wanna say? I need a bowl. Normal. Totally normal. So for my dry ingredients, I have 1 3/4 cups all-purpose flour. Is that the right amount of flour? Yeah. 2 1/2 teaspoons baking powder. I'm gonna pick up more. I can't believe that they don't, I love the they don't, hello? Maybe I should transfer it. That was 2 1/2, but I'm actually going to, I really like how it has the leveler on this can and this one doesn't, so I'm gonna try to transfer it into this can. See how this goes. This this a bad idea?
Yep, just take it off. That's
No. Wasn't that bad. Was this one bigger? Yep. Damn it. This one was 10 ounces, this one's 8 ounces. God. Just like get it. Hold on. I'm just gonna put the lid on it. That'll be fine. The last dry ingredient is salt. Sugar's a wet ingredient, Minnie.
Oh, yes.
We know this. So 3/4 of a teaspoon. And then that can just get whisked together, just to combine. So that's that. And then this recipe, a lot of quick breads that I make are oil-based, and that makes it easier to stir together. This one is actually butter-based because I want the flavor with the rhubarb. So I just melt the butter. So just put that right in there. Now I'll mix everything in this one large bowl. So I'm gonna add my sugar. This is 1 1/4 cups of granulated sugar. Again, like, seems like a lot for a loaf cake, but the rhubarb is so sour that any less, I think, becomes just not that pleasant. So to this, I'm going to add some orange zest. I really like the combination of flavors of the rhubarb and the orange. The recipe calls for 1 1/2 teaspoons. I often just eyeball it. 1 1/2 teaspoons should be maybe 1/3 to 1/2 of an orange, depending on the size of the orange. And this is just like a navel orange. All right, this is more than I even need. There's endless uses for a bench or bowl scraper, but one of them is getting zest off the surface. So I'm gonna put this in with the sugar. And the recipe doesn't say to do this, and it's not crucial, but one thing I like to do if I have the forethought is to work the zest into the sugar mixture. This is a Dory Greenspan tip. Dory, please come on dessert, people. We'd love to have you. We'll come to you. Paris? We're just inviting ourselves over to Dory's house. I'm gonna add my melted butter. Again, this is not hot. This is very, very close to room temp. In fact, some of the butter is not even fully melted. That's fine, it'll all smooth out. And then I'm gonna add my eggs, which are room temp. It's important that the eggs are room temperature and not cold, because if you were to add cold eggs to this, the butter would harden. And we want everything to be smooth so that it emulsifies together. And then with the whisk. So at this stage, I'm gonna whisk it pretty vigorously. I want to work a little bit of air into it and lighten it a little. All right, that looks good. Here I have 1/3 cup of plain whole milk Greek yogurt, room temperature for all the reasons we talked about. Then I'll add the rhubarb, and then just a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So whisk that in really well. Okay, so then we have all of our liquid ingredients. Here's our dry. In retrospect, I should have reversed these because I want to do, hold on. So sometimes I'm like, oh, it's okay if I add the dry ingredients to the wet, but then it almost always forms lumps. So it's really a good idea to stick to what I say to do, which is put the wet into the dry and not the dry into the wet, which is why I'm trying to put this in a bigger bowl. Just put that in there. Now this whole thing goes in. And then just gently whisk. I do concentric circles, and then as you bring the flour in from the sides, you can widen the radius a little bit. Doing this method prevents the formation of like lots of lumps, which could then give you problems. All right, but once you see everything well incorporated, you can stop mixing. I usually like tap off any batter that I can from the whisk and then switch to my spatula. And I fold it together to make sure there's no pockets of flour in there anywhere. Like there's actually a little bit here on the bottom. I'm gonna scrape that up. Okay, and then we have, don't forget about that reserved chopped rhubarb. It's 4 ounces. This goes right in. And we fold all of that together. Okay, and now we go right into our prepared pan. Okay, so then once you have all the batter and smooth the top, you don't have to like go crazy, but just, you know, let it settle, make it an even layer. And then once you do that, grab your rhubarb stalks that we cut for the top, put put them on there however way you want. I'm not worried if the ends are sticking up, but just don't you don't need to press them down. They will naturally settle into the surface. The last step is a bunch of sugar on the surface. Okay, more of that demerara sugar. That rhubarb on top is really tart. It wants that extra amount of sugar to sweeten it. So the rhubarb is dry, so the sugar is not sticking to the rhubarb. So it's going to be like this crunchy top around the rhubarb. Okay, this goes into the oven, 350. It bakes for a long time. This is a lot of batter. Batter has a lot of moisture in it. It takes a while to cook all the way through. So it goes for, well, 80 to 90 minutes total. It's long, hour and 20 to an hour and a half. But we're going to do that normal test that we do. So the surface is going to look dry to the touch, not shiny, and we'll do the cake tester in the middle just to make sure there should be no batter clinging to it. Pretty, right? Okay. All right. 80 minutes later, the cake is smelling delicious and it's smelling done. I'm going to test it. This is looking great. It's looking dry across the surface, so that's a good sign. And it's not quite done. Sorry. It needs like 2 more minutes. It's very, very close. All right. I feel confident that after a couple more minutes, it's done. I guess I will just do, oh God, one quick test to make sure. Damn it. Sorry. False alarm, guys. I should just be more patient. This light is broken.
Is it cooler down there?
Mm-hmm. Actually, it is. By like 5 degrees. Down here, it's, no way. This is 86.
Could be 90 up here.
No way.
And I'm a little taller, so it could be 92.
Okay, this is saying 84 down here. 83. Oh my God, it really does drop as I...
Can I try it up ahead? Yeah, come my height. You can't figure it out.
Yeah. All right, it's done. You know why I know it's done? Because I had a little bit of wet stuff on the cake tester, but it was pink, so I know that that's just from hitting the actual rhubarb that's inside, not the batter. So I'm gonna let this sit until it's fully cooled, and then, because I have my sides of parchment, I'll just cut down between the cake and the pan on the shorter sides and lift it out. All right, here is the cooled cake. Actually, I made this is a swap. I made this one last night. So the rhubarb kind of shrunk and lost a little bit of its vibrancy, but I think it still looks really pretty. I'm gonna cut it, and we're gonna try some. There's like a tiny bit of gumminess right at the top where I underbaked it, which you can tell because it's like a slight sinking in the middle. But overall, it looks really good. The crumb is so tender. There's a lot of moisture in it, so it's a cake that keeps really well. It stays moist. It doesn't dry out or become crumbly. And I don't even mind the color. Like, it's a little bit grayish green, but then you get the little pops of the rhubarb inside, and I think it looks really good. So I'm going to taste it. Take a little corner. I really like sour things, so I like when I get a little piece of the rhubarb. I'm going to try that. The rhubarb plus the orange is such a good combination, and I feel like this cake is unique in a lot of ways. I think it's unique just in how much rhubarb, and then by extension, how much rhubarb flavor is in the cake. Plus, it's really tender. It's really moist. Again, something I haven't made in so long. It's so good. Very happy to have made it again. Plus, when you get to the top, not only do you get the stalks, but you get all the little crunchies from the sugar. It kind of falls into this category of cake that is appropriate for any meal, any time of the day. You can like have a little bit for breakfast, have a slice in the afternoon as a snack, definitely as dessert, but it's just not a wrong time to enjoy it. So I hope you enjoyed watching this episode. I love bringing you really seasonal things from Dessert Person as we go through the year. Now getting into summer, it's a great way to use this beautiful example of summer produce. So I hope you liked watching, and I hope you try it out and like and subscribe.